This is Alaska, where the wilderness never ends, and the light never comes. We're talking about things that hide in the long, dark winter. I'm a ranger, and these are the 3 stories from the absolute edge of the map. They will freeze your blood and you will never forget them. Story 1, The Wrong Trail. This story is from Ranger Seth Cole, patrolling the remote, frigid backcountry of Denali National Park in the dead of winter. It was the start of the dark season, only a few hours of twilight each day. Seth was a certified expert, total pro. His job was setting up emergency supply caches along a rarely used, 100-mile loop trail. Total isolation, miles from anyone. Seth was crossing a massive, flat stretch of frozen tundra when he saw something impossible, a set of naked human footprints in the fresh, light snow. Not boot prints, but bare feet. He immediately stopped his snowmobile. The temperature was -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the prints were perfectly preserved and fresh, leading directly off the established trail and into the endless wilderness. He checked his radio, nothing but the sound of frozen static. He figured it was some crazy local challenging himself, nothing life-threatening yet. He followed the prints for a mile, and the prints never once deviated or suggested distress. They were a smooth, long stride. That's when he noticed something chilling. The prints were slowly, deliberately filling with black ice as he watched. It wasn't snow or water, the prints were hardening into a perfect, dark, empty mold of a human foot. He shouted into the wind, "Ranger! Stop! You'll freeze!" His voice was swallowed immediately. Then, from the direction the prints were heading, he heard a sound, not a cry, but a single, rhythmic shaking noise, like a human hand shaking a handful of dried beans. The prints were right next to him now, and he noticed that a small, perfect circle of black charcoal dust had been sprinkled around the edges of the last print. He checked his radio again. The static was gone, replaced by a deep, hollow voice saying, "Go back, Seth." Seth knew he had to get out of the area, now. He jumped back onto his snowmobile, throwing it into reverse. As he spun the machine around, the rhythmic shaking sound intensified, right behind him. He risked a look back. He saw nothing, but the entire field of human prints was now glowing faintly with a cold, pale light. And the shaking noise was so fast and loud it sounded like 1,000 people shivering in unison. He drove full speed back down the trail, ignoring his own frostbite. The light from the prints didn't chase him, it just sat there, pulsing, an awful lighthouse in the eternal dark. Seth made it back to the outpost, half frozen and completely rattled. He filed a report about a possible deranged hiker and abandoned his snowmobile. They searched the area later that week with a drone. They found nothing, no tracks, no light. But they did find Seth's snowmobile. The GPS was totally dead, but the snow around the machine was packed hard, and a small, perfectly preserved circle of black ice was found right where the driver's seat had been. Seth transferred to a national park in Hawaii, can't get far enough from the cold. He refuses to wear gloves, even in mild weather. Why? Because he told me that sometimes, when he shakes a container of salt or sugar, he hears that faint, rhythmic shaking sound in the back of his mind. And whenever he looks at his own footprint in the sand, he feels a brief, sickening dread, knowing that the Alaskan cold didn't just create tracks, it created a perfect, frozen mold of human despair. Hold up. Alaskan horror is next level, right? If this story already gave you the deep shivers, smash that like button and subscribe to Horror Spot. We specialize in the terror of the truly wild. And tell me this in the comments, what's the scariest sound you've ever heard in the quiet dark? Get involved. Story 2, The Vertical Scream. This happened in Wrangell St. Elias National Park, involving Ranger Maya Flores. Maya was a climbing expert. Her job was mapping glacial ice fields and checking weather stations on high, remote peaks. She was on a solo, week-long traverse across a massive ice wall, tough as steel. The sky was clear, and the vertical view was stunning. She was anchored to the ice wall, 2,000 feet up, when she heard a sound, a short, sharp click sound coming from the wall itself, right next to her ear. She checked her anchor, secure. She checked her gear, all safe. She realized the sound was coming from inside the ice itself. She figured it was just the glacier shifting, normal creaking. She continued climbing, but the clicking followed her, becoming faster, louder, and more rhythmic. Click, click, click. It sounded like a massive, organic jaw slowly chewing something. Then, she saw something horrifying. About 50 feet above her, a thin, perfect, deep red line of liquid was running down the blue ice, getting longer by the second. It wasn't blood, it was too bright, too shiny. She looked closer, and the rhythmic clicking stopped. She heard a faint, high-pitched scream coming from inside the ice right next to her, muffled and terrified. She tried to radio back, but her mic was dead. She looked at the red line again. It wasn't liquid. It was a single, long, thin strip of red synthetic fabric being slowly pulled into a fissure in the ice wall, and the clicking was the sound of the ice closing over it. Maya frantically yanked her axe free and swung it at the ice wall, aiming for the fissure. The high-pitched screaming intensified, now painfully loud, right in her face. As she swung, she saw the thin red fabric line quickly jerk upward, vanishing completely into the ice. She didn't hesitate. She unclipped her safety line and swung herself sideways onto a neighboring, untouched ice column, scrambling upward as fast as she could. As she climbed, she risked a look back at the original ice wall. A massive section of the blue ice was now pulsing faintly, and the high-pitched, terrifying scream was being replaced by the sickening, slow-chewing sound of the clicking ice. Maya made it back to base camp hours later, hysterical and totally exhausted. She reported a massive localized ice collapse that destroyed her gear. They sent a specialized team to investigate the next day. They found no collapse, no fissure, and no fabric. However, they noted finding one object, a single, tiny, frozen human fingertip, perfectly preserved, found resting on the surface of the untouched ice wall, right where the red fabric had vanished. The fingertip was dressed in a tiny scrap of red synthetic fabric that matched a common style of climbing jacket. Maya retired and moved to a large tropical island. She refuses to go near glass or ice. She told me that sometimes, when she grabs a plastic bottle from the freezer, she hears a faint, short click sound. And whenever she looks at a perfectly flat, clean wall, she sees a momentary, phantom red line running across it. She knows that the glacier didn't just absorb the climber, it acquired their terror. Story 3, The Gift of the Hunt. This final story is from Ranger Grizz Adams, patrolling the vast Kodiak archipelago. Grizz was the alpha dog, known for his incredible tracking skills and fearlessness. His job was a 2-week solo trip monitoring wildlife populations, particularly the massive Kodiak brown bears. It was early fall, misty and rugged terrain. Grizz was near a remote fishing creek when he smelled something impossible, the distinct, strong scent of cinnamon and warm sugar. He was miles from any cabin or human activity. He scanned the dense spruce trees. He thought maybe a hunter's abandoned food cache, but the scent was too fresh, too strong. He followed the scent for only 20 yards, and it led him to a small, flat clearing. In the center, there was a pile of objects, 3 perfect, fresh-caught salmon, beautifully filleted, and a small, wooden bowl full of thick, steaming brown sugar, still warm to the touch. It was a gift. And it was terrifying. Grizz was an expert hunter. He knew that a bear or a person who would leave a gift this large and deliberate was either extremely desperate or extremely dangerous. He heard a sound, not a growl, but a faint, rhythmic whispering coming from the dense trees all around the clearing. It sounded like names being spoken, too fast to distinguish. He backed away slowly. He checked his radio. It was silent, but his GPS screen was displaying a single, rapidly drawn symbol, a crooked human finger, pointing at the food. Grizz knew he had to leave the food untouched. it was bait. He turned and ran full speed back to his patrol boat. As he ran, the rhythmic whispering intensified, now seeming to come from the ground itself. He risked a look back. He saw nothing, but the mist in the clearing was beginning to swirl and spiral rapidly, forming a massive, vertical funnel of fog. And in the center of the funnel, the 3 fish and the bowl of sugar were rising slowly, spinning gracefully toward the sky. He reached his boat, scrambled in, and drove full throttle out of the creek, not stopping until the entire valley was miles behind him. Grizz reported a hostile encounter with a large, territorial bear that ruined his survey. He never mentioned the sugar or the whispering. A retrieval team was sent to the creek. They found nothing. But the final report noted that the creek bed was completely dry, and the mud where Grizz's boat had been was baked hard. Most disturbing, 2 large, beautiful Kodiak brown bears were found dead 20 feet from the clearing, their stomachs ripped open, and their bodies completely drained of moisture. Grizz retired immediately and now runs an accounting firm in the middle of a large, dry city. No wildlife for him. He told me that sometimes, when he opens a bag of trail mix, he smells that faint, sickeningly sweet scent of cinnamon and sugar. And whenever he closes his eyes, he sees a faint, crooked finger pointing at the food. He knows that thing in the Alaskan wild didn't just hunt, it offered a prize, and that prize was his life. That's the horror of Alaska, the terror of the truly infinite, truly cold dark. If these 3 terrifying, untold ranger stories are now etched into your brain, then please do us a huge favor, hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe to Horror Spot to keep these dark tales coming. For more secrets the rangers tried to hide, check out these 2 videos. They are linked right now on your screen and in the description.